Good morning and welcome to the Oasis Center for Spiritual Living, where we come together as one, providing spiritual tools for daily living. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Reverend Tucker. I'm the senior minister here at the Oasis, and Oz is out he's ushering a matinee today, so he's not going to be here. But Faith is. I always like to introduce my team. My faithful assistant, Faith, who has been with me basically since the day she was born. Her dad used to work the soundboard. So when she was about 3 weeks old, he brought her to church and he had her in one hand and the soundboard in the other hand. And when she was old enough, she started to crawl, and she crawled right up on the stage, and we figured she belonged there because she acted like it. So I just step over her while I was talking, and then we'd put her on the podium to do announcements. And I tend to think that people paid more attention to the announcements when she was up there because she was so cute. And that cute little baby grew up in my neighborhood 6 blocks away. Her dad was a tow truck driver, and he used to drop her and Hannah off at my house when he would go to do out-of-town tows. And I always had projects going. I just lived my life in project mode. And so the girls would come and work on the projects with me. So when Faith said at 14 and a half, I really want a real job, I was like, yeah, I'd seen her work. So I hired her for my ozone business. And then when we went live for the service during the pandemic, I asked her if she would be my ministerial assistant, and she said yes. So here we are. She's now 20 years old as of 2 weeks ago.
Woo.
Woo-hoo. Next year, 21.
Right?
So she's been with me a long time. She's been with me 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she is the one behind the scenes that does everything. I just talk. That's all I do. And so she frees me up to do that because I'm not very good at multitasking when I'm talking. Otherwise, when I'm talking, I get sidetracked by things, if I have to do stuff. So this lets me stay on track. So we like it when you say hi, hello, good morning, because in a facility, I can look out and see the shining faces beaming back at me. But here I get a number. I don't even get names. So when you do that, Faith is the one that answers you as me. And I always go back and check and see if there's something I need to add. But in 3 years, I think that's only happened twice. And that was only because they were somebody that I knew needed more information. And so like one of my friends in Holland, for example, said, "What is this?" Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Sonia? And so I had a little bit of an explanation for her that I needed to give her. But anyway, so Faith is the one answering you as me, but she's also our singer. And so today we are doing
Spirit Within Me by Elaine Silver.
Spirit Within Me by Elaine Silver. That's right. So thank you, Faith. I couldn't do this without you, literally. I love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Oh my goodness. It's so weird when you don't have the whole team here. I guess I'm going to be the practitioner of the day, which means I'm going to do the invocation and the benediction, and I'll be the one that's available for the 1 minute miracle at the end. I'll explain a little bit more about that later. Let's see. If there is a share button, or a watch party button, I should say. So you can do a watch party with your friends, invite all your friends so they can see what kind of church services they can expect. And it gives you an opportunity to ask any questions they might have because it's a private chat kind of situation. It doesn't disturb anybody else's experience. So definitely click on that watch party button and invite all your friends. Okay. All right. So I think that's it. Yep, that's it. So I invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable. Allow the service to uplift and inspire you as we move into our centering song.
Surely the presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace can feel the rush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of God is in this place. Surely the presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can feel the rush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of God is in this place.
Surely the presence of God is right here in this place, in all places, for God is ever present, anywhere we are. I turn my awareness now to that infinite power, that infinite presence that exists beyond my human understanding. As I know that that is who and what I am, my very essence, my very life, my very being, everything that I am. I know that same truth to be so for faith. For we are blessed and a blessing through that connection of God that flows through us. We are one in it, and we are as it. And so I know that everyone watching here is equally connected, that we are one in the infinite power and the infinite presence of God. And so I bless this service because I know that it uplifts and inspires all who are in attendance, whether that be in real time or later on, because that spirit flows through all of life. And so as we begin this service, I bless it, I call it good, I name it as very good. And my heart fills with gratitude as I relax and let this be. And so it is. Amen. All right, this next song is one that Reverend Fairy Elaine Silver wrote while she was in practitioner training. It's a great reminder that we are all one.
We are all one. We are all one. We are all one in it. I hear it and know it, my being. Spirit is all I am seeing. For God is all there is. Grateful am I to be living, open to what I have seen, honoring what I've been given, sharing now what I believe. I remember the oneness around me. I surrender to infinite light, knowing the love that's surrounding me is within me by day and night. And we are all one. We are all one. We are all one in it. Yes, we are all one. We are all one. We are all one in it.
Yes, we are all one in it. Connected by it, through it, as it. All right. So if you're here, please say hi, good morning, hello, however you want to greet us in the facility. I can look out and see those shining faces beaming back at me, but I don't get that here. I get a number. So please do that. If you're dropping by later, of course, just drop a line and say hi so I know who's been here. And if you like something that you hear, whether that's a prayer or something I say or Faith sings, by all means, hit that like button. And if you love what you hear, send us hearts. We love to get love. And if something strikes you as very powerful, just please use that wow button. It lets us know that we're on track. So we appreciate that feedback. Without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Faith, and she will be singing Spirit Within Me by Reverend Fairy Lane Silver.
Thank you. Spirit within me, now I see perfection and love with clarity. Spirit within me, now I know infinite gifts that you bestow. I am open and I am free. The divine emotions are healing me. I'm complete and I am whole, sanctifying my heart and soul. Spirit within me, now I find so many blessings from one mind. Spirit within me, now I want, expanding beyond the moon and sun. I surrender to the light. It fills me up and gives me a sign to see and remember how I feel. With a gratefulness that I am healed. Spirit within me, I'm aware what I receive and what I share. Spirit within my consciousness, reaching out to manifest. All my desires, wants, and needs are more than just a word to me. Abundance flows through my door, continues now and forevermore. Spirit within me, now I see perfection and love with clarity. Spirit within me, now I know infinite gifts that you bestow. I am open and I am free. Divine emotions are healing me. I'm completed and I am whole, sanctifying my heart and soul. Sanctifying my heart and soul. Sanctifying my heart and soul.
Oops, sorry.
Quiet. Don't scare the baby.
Don't scare the baby. She jumped up. Thank you, Faith. That was great. For those of you who don't know, I adopted a Chihuahua a year and a half ago, and she's laying on my lap now during the service. But loud noises, abrupt loud noises, always startle her. So she's not afraid of anything. It's really funny. She's really not afraid of anything, but she gets startled real easily. So anyway, today is the final Sunday of our Back to Basics series. We have been doing the first 4 chapters of the textbook. So let me just share with you how the textbook came into fruition. Dr. Ernest Holmes, who is our founder, was going around the country lecturing, and someone took all of his lectures and compiled it into one book, and that's what we use as our textbook. And it's really funny, actually, when you think about it, because just like if you to the Bible, for example, is one of them, is that on one page he'll say something, and then like a few chapters later he will say what looks like it contradicts itself. But the true reality of any writing of any kind is that there's an evolution of thought over time. And so while he had a more simple version than he might have covered in one section, much later on, he then elaborated more because his consciousness had shifted, his prevailing awareness had shifted. And so when we talk about any book or any writer or the Bible or, books in the library, what we're really talking about is that there's been a shift in consciousness and new information has been revealed. And because of that, it may appear as if it contradicts itself, but it's just a different perspective on the same thing. Dr. Ernest Holmes was actually inspired by Ralph Waldo Emerson and his talks of the different ideas of like a spiritual or a Godhead, so to speak, or circles was another one where he was talking about, how life is a circle and it continues on and on and on. So he was inspired by those writings, and then he found the works of Judge Thomas Troward. Now, Judge Thomas Troward was a Christian English judge that was serving in India. And one of the things that made him so successful in India is that he studied the Indian people and their culture and their religion, so that when he handed down a sentence, he handed down something that they could accept because it was within their culture. But in his studies, he figured out that there were spiritual laws in the universe, the same spiritual laws that were in effect for Christianity were also in effect for the Hinduism. And so he started writing about spiritual law. Imagine that, a judge studying law, right? So his passion was for spiritual law, and he wrote several books on that. And so Dr. Ernest Holmes found that and started lecturing about it because he was so intrigued by the idea and because it so spoke to his heart. But that was all about law. And then he found Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was actually worked with Mary Baker Eddy of Christian Science at one point, and they had a falling out. And she went on to do this School of Mysticism, and Dr. Ernest Holmes studied under her. And that's when he learned about the love of God. Okay, so that's the basics here. The first 4 chapters are the thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. Now, the first week I talked about the thing itself, which is there's an indwelling presence within each of us that is the thing itself. And our bodies and our lives have this divine blueprint that is the truth about us. Now, when I say God is within us, I don't mean all of God is within me. What I mean is that God is through everything, all people, all places, all things. God is in and through all of that. And it exists not only in the surrounding atmosphere of us, but flows through us as well. And so when I talk about God, I'm talking about that indwelling presence that lives here as well as all around me. So that's the thing itself. The way it works is through love and law. So it was really handy that he found Emma Curtis Hopkins because we need both components of love and law to work with our philosophy. And the love is very impersonal. We don't look at God as a male or a female, as a person, so to speak, because that's making God in the image and likeness of us, right? We are made in the image and likeness of God. And so I don't see it as a person. And because of that, there cannot be any preferences. Like when I was a kid growing up, a girl, right? And I was Orthodox Jewish, and I was being told that women are unholy because of what happened in the Garden of Eden. Eve talked Adam into taking a bite of the apple. So here I am, a little girl, knowing I'm growing up to be a woman and realizing that they think I'm unholy, right? Because of that. And so God had a preference definitely for the male. And even though the bloodline flows through the woman, they don't acknowledge that as much except when, in my case, my mom was a convert. And so I was known as the convert's daughter. And they told me I wasn't truly Jewish because my bloodline came through my mother, who was a Southern Baptist, whatever. And so I didn't make it very well in the Jewish philosophy, the Jewish religion. I was kicked out of Hebrew school more times than I can remember. And the last one was, I made the rabbi so angry because I kept getting kicked out because I would ask questions, and then he'd say, well, you can't question that. And so finally I said, but the rabbis tell us to question everything. And he's like, but not that. And I said, well, if everything is everything, then, it went kind of like that. So that was the final straw, and I was not allowed to go back. Excuse me. So for me, getting into religious science, this philosophy, I was very comforted that God didn't have a preference for gender or race or color or religion or creed or anything else. It didn't matter whether you were gay or straight. It didn't matter whether you were red, black, purple, pink, whatever you were. It didn't matter, that God loved us the same. And so when I teach about God's love, that's what I teach. And then the law is impartial. It works for everyone, regardless of those same things. And so no matter who it is, if someone goes and turns on the light switch, it's going to work the same for every single person. And it doesn't matter who you are. And our spiritual laws are very much the same way. You may be really familiar with the law of attraction, or the law of circulation, or one of the ones that kept coming up on TikTok was the law of assumption. But when it's presented in those kinds of formats, it's kind of a shortcut to the end, because you have to teach more of it than just that. It's not like you say an affirmation one day and you manifest the next day. Some people can, but not usually. The law of cause and effect says I have to change something within my subjective mind in order for those manifestations to take place, because we have these filters that sit there. I like to say the subjective mind is like a hard drive in a computer. It records everything that you've ever experienced and all of your reactions to it. So you have all this encoding in there. And when I say an affirmation, a lot of times it comes up, something against it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But that's the way the law of attraction is usually taught. It's not taught that you need to go and look at those beliefs and try and figure out where they came from and whether you want to keep them, change them, or get rid of them. And so the law of assumption is another one that I love the idea that you assume this is happening. Like, I assume I'm in this relationship. The problem with that, as they teach it on TikTok, is that you can assume that you're in a relationship with a specific person and they will magically become yours. And we have free will. One of the benefits of having God within us is that we have free will. And there's no way that I can coerce another person by doing an affirmation of assumption, speaking words of assumption. I can't coerce them to be with me. That would be, first of all, out of integrity. Second of all, if you were to coerce them, nobody would be happy because they would come unwillingly and wonder why they're here, right? And so I don't think that using the law of assumption that way is good. You can say, I make the assumption that I am now in a healthy, loving relationship where I feel loved and valued, and I know the perfect person is in my life. That you can say. That doesn't limit it to that person over there. You're not coercing anybody. You're drawing to yourself. Law of circulation is one that is very misunderstood, I think. The law of circulation says what I put out there, I receive back. Okay. So it's the basis for tithing. It's the basis for living your life in a more positive way so that you're not attracting negativity to yourself. Because negativity is like a magnet. If I put negativity out there, I'm going to receive negativity in return, because the law of circulation says what I put out there, I will get back, right? And so when I talk about love and law being the way it works, that is what I'm talking about. The love that is impersonal and the law that is impartial, and all of those, I call them little sub laws. There is only one spiritual law, but it encompasses all of that. But that is the way it works. And then what it does is it transforms us versus change. Now, I can change my mind, I can change my life, I can change everything about myself, but I can always change back. When I am fully present in my God space, as I like to put it, my God person, then I transform. And once I'm transformed, I cannot change back, right? So something that has been transformed cannot change back. Not like the Transformers that you see. They change back and forth all the time. But truly, when we transform our lives, we cannot go back to the old life. Something within us has inextricably changed at that point. But what it does is allows us to be in integrity with ourselves. So for instance, I used to separate myself as I'm this person when I'm with my family. I'm that person when I'm with my friends. I'm this person when I'm speaking in church. I'm this person when I'm out playing on the streets, so to speak. And what I realized finally, after Dr. Fred said it many, many times, one of my mentor ministers, that I'm the same person you see in the pulpit as you see on the street. And out of listening to him for years and years and years, I finally got it, that in order to be in integrity, we must actually be the same person no matter who's around, no matter what you're doing. It's always the same person. We don't have to be different with other people, because when I'm authentically myself, people love me the way I am. It's only when I'm not good with myself that I feel like I have to be these other people, right? And so what this philosophy does is it allows me to embrace the oneness. That is really true. Okay. I'm a human doing, but I'm a spiritual being having this human experience. And so I remember that as I work through all of this, because it's so true that when I have embraced myself as I am, I get peace, I get joy, I get calmness, I get harmony, I get love. And it's all of those things, wellness, prosperity, all of that is encompassed in that one thing, because what it does is it brings us to a place where we are magnets for good, right? Whatever that good is, whether that's a relationship or money or health, it's all the same thing. It's all the same process, and it's all that same beingness. Like, I like to listen to Abraham Hicks. It's I can't remember her name, something Hicks, and she channels this entity called Abraham, and they talk about the being in the vortex, and I liken that to being like in the eye of a hurricane. Because when you're sitting in the eye of the hurricane, everything is calm and everything around you swirling around, and there's all this chaos, and you are in that place of peace, that place of calm, that place of knowing that you're safe, right? And so when we're in the vortex, what we're doing is all of the things that have been working in our favor, that the universe has been working on, is attracted to us when we're in that vortex, because we are finally in that place of peace, in that place of knowing that our good is ours, right? And so it makes it easier for us to attract that. And so what I think this philosophy does is it puts us in that place, in the eye of the hurricane, or the vortex, if you want to say it that way. Or you could just say in that place of peace where all is possible. All right. That was my recap of the first 3 weeks. Then last week, I was talking about spiritual mind treatment, because that is really the tool that we teach the most. That's the tool we use the most in our philosophy. Dr. Ernest Holmes came up with this process to do prayer. It's affirmative prayer, meaning we don't beseech, we don't beg. We come from a place of positive affirmation of it. So I use this acronym, RTR. Are you ready to receive? To remember the names of the steps. But it's really, are you ready to receive? Because if you don't prepare the soil, the seed's not going to take effect, right? So the first stage is very much like meditation. It is where we are cultivating an awareness within ourselves of how powerful God is, how completely amazing God is, and we are centering ourselves in that beauty and that power and that love that is God. The second step is also like meditation because we are recognizing our unification with it. We are knowing that if God is all there is and God is all powerful, then God must be flowing through us. We must be connected to it, by it, as it. And so I talked a little bit about meditation, and I talked about spiritual mind treatment last week. I also talked about affirmations because that's really like the third step, which is realization. Now, when I teach my students to do treatment, which, by the way, we call it spiritual mind treatment because we are not asking God for anything. We are instead changing our vibration or changing our frequency to vibrate at the frequency of God. And when we do that, it's all the work is done on us. It's not going out there to a being out there. It is all about us shifting our consciousness to be in that vibration of prosperity, or that vibration of love, or that vibration of health. And so when we do our realization step, so when I teach my students, what I usually do is say, spend at least a quarter of a page in recognition and a quarter of a page in unification. And then when you get to the realization step, it should be 1 or 2 statements. And they're always in the now. They're written just like an affirmation. So I talked a little bit about affirmation last week. And that's where we kind of ended with, going through that. Affirmations, I say them 100 times a day, not because there's some magic formula in 100 times, but because when we do affirmations, our brain, when we're first born, our brain is smooth. And through repetition, the deeper grooves are formed. And that allows the synapses to fire faster and easier. And so when I'm doing affirmations, what I'm doing is I'm deepening those grooves over and over and over again. This is like driving a car. When you first start learning to drive a car, your thoughts are, I got to put my foot over here. I got to, put my hands here. I got to look over here. But once you have driven for a while, the grooves have been developed, and now you can just drive the car and you start thinking about what's around you and where you're headed instead of all those other things that you need to think about when you're first starting out. And so when we're doing affirmations, that's what we're doing. We're calling it into the now. I'm saying things like, I am now with my perfect person and I feel valued, loved, and the love just streams towards me, right? Or, I now have more than enough to share and to spare. But if you want to get really specific, you could say, I now have $10,000 a month or more of income. And I'll talk a little bit in a minute about how the process with the subjective mind interferes with that, which is why just saying affirmations is not quite enough. But I ran into, I think it was in the 80s, a woman named Sandra Ray. And she wrote these books on affirmations, and she had you do it in the first person, second person, third person, and write them 50 times like that. And her, that's not what the important part is. The important part is that she said, anytime you have an objection to anything that you are saying or writing, you write that in the margins, and then you go back and change your affirmation to counteract that. Now, that is what I call the subjective mind interfering, because if you say, I have $10,000 a month or more income coming in, and you all of a sudden have this thought like, well, who are you to make $10,000 a month? You've never made more than $2,000 a month. How can you possibly think that you can make that into 10,000? Or you have something in your head that says you don't deserve to make $10,000 a month income. That is the subjective mind throwing back to us, at us, I should say, beliefs that we have stored in the subjective mind. Remember, I said it's like a hard drive of a computer, and we've stored that belief in there. And anytime we do an affirmation, it's going to pop up and say those things to us in our head. So the thing that I learned the best from Sandra Ray is that we address those same things. We address, we change the affirmation, and we change it to contradict whatever has come up. And then when we feel like that's okay, we go back to the original affirmation and say it again. And if nothing else comes up, we know that we've got the right affirmation and that it is working, right? The realization step is exactly that same way. If I'm working on health, for example, in my realization, I would say in the now, always in the now, I am now experiencing perfect health. My body now reflects that divine blueprint that is the truth about me, is now reflected in the outer world, you see? So when we do realization, that's that last, that little one or two statements. And Thanksgiving is the same thing. What does it take for you to reach gratitude, right? I always like to say, I am so grateful that this is done and to be of service in this way. And that, you may not want to say that. But that's really all I say, because the minute I say those words, my heart just fills with that gratitude. Whatever it takes for you to do that. But it's usually only one sentence, maybe two at the most. And then we release it, which is one of the most important things that you can do. Dr. Fred used to say, you don't go out and plant a seed and then dig it up every 5 minutes to see if it's grown. But we tend to go, it hasn't worked yet. It hasn't worked yet. It hasn't worked yet. So we release it. We let the universe operate on it. God, divine presence, whatever you want to call that, Allah, whatever your word is, God works for me. I have no issues with the word God. I know some people do. So if you need to say spirit or great spirit or Allah or whatever you need to say in your head to make that okay. But you release it knowing that it is taken care of. And that doesn't mean that, if it comes up again, you start your treatment all over again and you release it again. But once you release it, don't pick it back up. Don't start worrying about it. Because what we tend to do is we worry a lot. And so in the background, we're like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know, you don't want to do that kind of stuff. If you're doing that, go back and do your treatment all over again and release it again, and keep doing that until you can finally totally release it. Okay, so those are the steps of treatment. What I want to talk about today, the new information for today, is visualization and visioning. Visualization is part of that step of realization, because for decades, successful athletes have been doing visualization. They have been seeing themselves winning the Stanley Cup, or they have seen themselves lifting, hundreds of pounds successfully. Bodybuilders, golfers, all of those people are visualizing the end result of all of their hard work. And successful business people, also, all these successful CEOs have been doing visualization for a very long time about what it's going to be when they reach a certain level of success, right? So visualization is when I decide I want to see a specific outcome, or feel it, or know it. I'll get to that in a minute. And so we do visualization. We pick something we want to have as an end experience, and we keep working on that. We keep focusing our attention on that until it manifests. So that's why I say it's like the third step as well. And then visioning is a whole other thing. Visualization, you are actively pursuing an end goal. In visioning, we are open to God's vision for our life. Not God out here again. We're not talking about a God up in the sky. We're not talking about any of that. What we're saying is that in our human awareness, we are limited by this many possibilities. When we open to the God within us, that powerful presence that lives within us, when we open to that and receive the information, there are endless possibilities. I always talk about Marlene Maitland in What the Bleep Do We Know? She's standing there watching this kid play basketball, and he's bouncing the ball and he's bouncing the ball, and she turns away from him and all these basketballs come flying out. And then she turns back to him and she only sees the one. And for me, what that says is that if we've got our attention focused on that one basketball, we're never going to see all the other basketballs, right? And so that's what I think visioning does, is it opens us to all the possibilities that God does see that we don't, because we have our attention focused one place, we're only seeing this much. So we do this every quarter, and it actually, visioning has been around for a very long time. Dr. Michael Beckwith kind of gave us a formula to be able to use in our practice, which is these three really important questions that we ask ourselves. What is God's vision for my life? And again, we're not talking about God out here. We're talking about the God within us. What is God's vision for my life? And then, because we cannot be that which we have not yet become, we ask what spiritual principle we need to envelop or encompass in ourselves in order to become that vessel through which that can manifest through us. I'm sorry, I have to take one quick moment. Hi, Fred, Kathy, Marlene, and Joy. 11:11, it's the time where Dr. Fred used to say 11:11 is the time when the two worlds are open to each other. So I always say hello to them when I notice it's 11:11, sometimes twice a day. Sometimes I notice it twice a day. Anyway, so then after we ask, what spiritual principle must I embody in order to become that vessel through which God's vision can manifest? Then we ask, what must I release in order to embody that principle, right? So where all this comes from is Dr. Michael Beckwith used to teach what spiritual life is, the steps to spiritual life, I should say. The first stage is the to it stage, where it's kind of the victim stage, not in a negative way. Please understand, I'm not saying it's a negative thing, but we believed that we didn't have any power. Most of us were raised that way, to not know that we had any power in the world, that everything was done to us. And we had no effect on our lives or our world of any kind. And it's kind of an important step, because we have to work our way through to where we understand we do have power, right? Without a victim stage, we may not know that. Oh, okay. I don't know what I did with that. The next one is the to it stage, and we call that the manipulative stage, the manipulation stage. That's when we finally figure out, and not in a bad way, again, it's a good thing. But that's when we find out that we do have power, that we do have an effect on our world. We realize that we can use those spiritual laws to our benefit and manipulate them, sort of, I teach my students, when they first come to class, we're going to treat for parking spaces. And most of them will say, isn't that a wrong use of God? It's like, no, practice makes perfect. So you start out with the small things, and then you get bigger and bigger and bigger. But you have to understand that you have the ability to use those spiritual laws to affect change in your life, if you're going to have the life you want to live. So we start out with parking spaces, and we start, with little itty bitty things that we know will teach us that this process works. We're in a laboratory of teaching ourselves or proving to ourselves that this stuff works, right? We don't ask anybody to just believe us on faith. That isn't the way this works. So, and then the third stage is when we finally realize that we do have power and we can use those spiritual laws, that we ask, or that we accept, that God works through us, because God can't do anything for us that it can't do through us. So when we are in this through us stage, we recognize that We recognize that. And we know that everything is being done through us for our life to change. When I am affirming, realizing abundance, for example, that means that I realize that the abundance is coming through me, that it's not something that is added unto me, right? It is something that's coming through me from the universe all the way flowing through me, just like a watermark on a page. We give form, the watermark gives form to that, doesn't impede the flow of the paper from going through it. And that's the way God works too. We're like a watermark on a page. God flows through us. And so, and it doesn't, it doesn't impede God's flow that we have form, right? And so I kind of visualize it that way. And so we end up, recognizing that everything is flowing through us, that abundance, prosperity is flowing through us, that love is flowing through us. I like to think of God's love this way. I have a funnel on top of my head. It comes in and it goes out. That's kind of how I envision it. Or if we're talking about health, it's the same thing. It flows through us. It's not something that I make myself go to the gym, or I make myself eat a certain thing, or I make myself, that overcoming will is really difficult. But when I recognize that God is working through me to achieve that blueprint, that divine blueprint that lives within me, for my body to conform to that, then all of a sudden my body wants to go to the gym. My body craves certain foods. My body is now telling me this is what we're doing, right? That makes a whole lot of difference. Like when you're doing New Year's resolutions, for example, most people don't make it through the first month of their resolutions because it's based on overcoming our own will. And that just isn't the way it works. If we work from the inside out, we can achieve anything, because then it is our inner presence or our body or our mind that is seeking out those things, and we don't have to overcome the will. Yeah, if that makes any sense. And so the final question, or the final stage, is as us. And that's when we don't even have to think about it. It just sort of happens as us, that we walk in the world as agents of God's love, agents of God's prosperity, agents of God's health. We are just walking in the world that way, and it is happening as us. And we don't have to process through it any longer. It just sort of, we speak our word in one sentence instead of doing the whole thing of treatment. I've known only a couple people that have been able to declare their word that quickly and have results. One of them was Dr. Ernest Holmes, who, by the way, did not market his services at all. He hung a shingle outside of his office, and he sat in his office and prayed. And people just wandered in off the street. And because his consciousness had reached the level of as him, he was able to do that. Not many of us can. I don't know that many people, like I said, that have that ability. But those are the 4 stages of spiritual growth. And so when we're doing visioning, we're asking those 3 questions. We're asking, what is God's vision for my life, the divine inside of me? What must I become? What spiritual principle must I embody in order to experience that, or become the vessel through which that vision manifests? And we ask, what must I release? And before I close this out, I want to just say really quickly that it's really important that we honor the way our information comes in. I took a psychic development class years ago, and what I realized was that everybody has like this gift order. Like Faith, for example, is very audient. So when she gets information through hearing, she is able to absorb it better. And she gets a small, still voice of God, I guess. I don't know. But a lot of people will talk about that small, still voice of God. I don't hear anything. Audience is like the lowest for my gift order. I'm a feeler. So I feel things first, and then I have to use my other gifts to analyze what I'm feeling. But I realize that I don't get a sound. My second gift order is just a knowingness. Let's put it that way. I used to think I was, that I had, shoot, I can't think of the name of photo recall. I used to think when I got information, it just popped in my head that somehow I must have seen it somewhere, read it in a magazine in a doctor's office or something, and it's just popping up from there. But what I recognized after I took that psychic development class is that I don't have a photographic memory. That's what it's called. That instead, with my second gift, things just pop into my head. And I don't get a vision. I don't get a picture because visual is third on my list, right? So just honor how you get that information. And you can do the visioning yourself, or you can join us once a quarter at the end of the quarter to do visioning with us till you feel like you're comfortable enough to do it on your own. But I suggest people do visioning. If you feel like you could do that this week, let's do that. Let's do visioning and let's do visualization, because I want us to have the experience of what it's like to totally embrace those desires in real life, in the physical reality. Okay. Will you do that with me this week? Let's have a prayer. So right now I turn my awareness to the infinite power, the infinite presence, the infinite life of God, to that place beyond my human awareness. Beyond the place where my human awareness can fathom that power, that presence, that life, that love. The divine within me that understands at a very core level just how powerful God is. And that is where I find myself, in the midst of God, my very life, my very essence, my very being. It is who and what I am. And every thought, every action, every deed is guided and led by that ancient wisdom of the ages that flows through all of us. I know that same truth to be so for each of the members of my team, because we are one. I know it for Lynn and for Tina and for Faith and for Oz and for Karen and for Elaine and for Marilyn and for Catherine. I know that we are one in that infinite power, that infinite presence of God. And that ancient wisdom of the ages is that which leads and guides us in every thought, every action, every deed, to that place of total understanding of the power of God that lives within us. And it leads us and guides us to do that which needs to be done by us. I know that same truth for everyone who's here today, whether that be in real time or later on. For there is no place where one leaves off and the other begins. All my brethren, we are related. So right now, I bless this coming week with wonderful experiences of God flowing through us, of life that is perfected by our thoughts and our actions and our deeds. As we work on our subjective mind and we come to a place of knowingness about ourselves and about God within us. And so as I declare this to be so for all of us, I definitely declare it to be so for every name that is in the ministry of prayer today. Because I do know that whatever experience you are having, God is the answer. So I pull back the veil right now and reveal God's presence in that issue. I claim the good for each person in their name. I claim it as good and very good. And so I give great thanks. And my heart fills with joy to know that this is so, to be of service in this way. And so I just let it be. And so it is. Amen. Looks like we're going to go over just a little bit. So hang tough with me, guys.
I was gonna say, it's not liking me today. Okay, well then fine. We're gonna do this. We are the heart, we are the hands, we are the voice of spirit on earth, and who we are, and all we do is a blessing to the world.
All right. Now is the time for us to receive your gifts, tithes, and offerings, and your opportunity to feel gratitude and share your gratitude for that which you have experienced in the physical realm and that which maybe you created in the mind of God but have not yet experienced in the physical realm. Excuse me. In a minute, I'm going to ask you to go to www.oasiscsl.org, and about 2/3 down the page is our offering affirmation, and then directly under that is the Contribute Now button. So let me just say a quick thing about contributions. When we're in a facility, there's rent and utilities and all those normal expenses that come with a church facility, right? We don't have that. What we do have is a marketing campaign to reach the global world for our mission and our vision. Our vision is a healed world. Our mission is healing the world one person at a time. And that's a global thing. So we do have to pay for marketing, unfortunately. I wish it was free. I wish they would say, well, you're nonprofit, so you don't have to pay any money for it. But unfortunately, we do have to pay for it. So right now, whether you're watching this in real time or later on, please now go to www.oasiscsl.org and about 2/3 down the page, say this offering affirmation with me. This perfect gift is spirit in form, circulating and blessing all it touches. Freely I give and joyously I receive. And so it is. Hit that Contribute Now button and help us get to our vision through our mission. Thank you. All right. Quickly, I'm going to do these. I know we're running late, so I'm going to do it as quick as I possibly can. We have this wonderful team of licensed practitioners from coast to coast that serve on our team as the God Squad. I have a whole imagery that goes along with the God Squad, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Excuse me. Our practitioners function for us in 3 different ways. Excuse me. The first of which is if you would like prayer for something, they will pray every day for a week on those requests. So if you would like prayer, put it in the comments. If you don't want it to be public, you can DM Faith and she'll make sure the God Squad gets it. And then the second way that they serve is they're available by appointment for a fee for spiritual guidance. If you would like a session, you reach out to the practitioners on Facebook, let them know that you would like a session. They will let you know how to pay for it. I don't get involved in that. They're separate businesses. So some use Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, Wise, many different ways. And like I said, I don't get involved in any of that. So they'll tell you how to pay for it. Then at the appointed time, they will call you by video chat. And that's a session for spiritual guidance. The other way our practitioners usually serve us is practitioner of the day, where they do the invocation, the benediction, and they're available at the end for a 1-minute miracle. It's not a time for counseling, but it is a time when you can share whatever challenge you're experiencing, and they will stop, drop, and pray with you right then and there. Blah, blah. I guess that's me today, since Oz is at the matinee ushering. So if you would like to have me pray for you, do a video chat to me, please. All right. Let's see. What else do I need to say? Brooks and Bailey. These are amethyst mala beads. Mala beads are great. The Hindus and Buddhists use it for their chants because there's 108 beads. They move one bead at a time and do their chants 108 times. I say do affirmations that way. Those are amethyst, so they're $60, but I know they have other gemstones that are $30 and up. They do have a Facebook page, or you can reach them at brooksandbailey0307@gmail. All proceeds go to the Rocky Mountain Lab Rescue, which I think is a very worthy cause. So definitely check these ladies out. They do have other jewelry, but I love their mala beads personally. All right. And then we have an Etsy store by Angel Renee, where she has intention candles and intention tea bags. So you put those in the bath water with you, and she uses these aromatic herbs to help you focus on your intention. All right. Let's see. Next is Reverend Fairy Elaine Silver's website. If you enjoyed the music we've been doing all month, that is Reverend Fairy Elaine Silver's music. And so definitely check her out. She does not have a way for you to pay for it on the website. She can't, for some reason, change the form of payment on it. And she travels around the United States singing all the time. So you figure out what you want to buy, and then you email her and let her know. And she's really good about, here's how you pay for it. And then the next day or whatever, she's got those CDs in the mail because she travels around with them in her car. So anyway, okay. The other one is Karen Drucker. Karen Drucker's website does work. You can buy it by the song, by the CD. You can get karaoke files, song files. We love Karen Drucker's music because she has a lot of chant CDs that we use a lot of her music for more normally. So definitely check her out. Her website does work. So you can also get songbooks, and some of them have American Sign Language. If you have an interest in knowing how to sign a particular song, I'm sure she can work that out for you. Anyway, so that's Karen Drucker. And then check out our website, www.oasiscsl.org. There you're going to find video sermons from the last 3 years, audio sermons from all the years prior. It is not updated. I'm sorry. We are working on that. I've had a few things that have gotten in the way of me being able to work on it. So we are updating it, I promise you. In the meantime, you can get those video sermons from YouTube and the audio sermons from SoundCloud under S. Tucker. So look it up that way. But definitely keep in touch with what's going on in our church. So, all right. I think that is pretty much it. And so I'm just going to, since I prayed for the for the end of the sermon, I think I'm just going to do the goodbye because it seems, I don't know, it just seems weird to go back and do it again. So thank you for being here. We know there's 1,000 things you could be doing on a Sunday morning. We are blessed to have you with us, and join us next week and every week at 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time. Next week, we are starting our series on the month of love. And so there will be 3 weekends that we'll be doing love. And it ought to be interesting. It's so funny that Catherine and Marilyn were both here, because I wish they would have heard this part of it, because I really would have loved to have one of them or both of them speak. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's okay. They aren't here now, so oh well. Because I think it's boring for me to just keep saying the same stuff over and over again. It just seems like it'd be nice to have someone else's perspective out there. Like when I teach class, I don't like one person in the classroom, because they get my experience and that's all they get. I like discussions, and I just like to have different perspectives presented. That's all I'm saying. But next week we start our series on the month of love. So definitely be here at 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time next week. We love you. Thank you for being here. Until we see you again, stay safe. Bye.